Hey guys, into the stars in our rabbit hole journey for truth. We stumbled across the movie Room 237. This is a documentary about the movie The Shining, and it contains the number 37, as you know. And as you know, my dorm room was 237. This movie was released on my birthday, March 29th. Let's get into this and see what clues we can uncover.
Now here's the movie poster for the movie The Shining. And it says here, some movies stay with you forever and ever and ever. And of course you see the hexagons, which now we have learned are foreshortened cubes. This is the Matrix. This is time. This is the serpent and being locked in time.
And I suddenly said to my friends, that movie was about the genocide of the American Indians. And they said, what are you talking about? And I started explaining it, because I'd noticed the Calumet baking soda can. In the first time we see one, it's a single baking powder can, straight on, and you can see the whole word Calumet. So there's no duplicity, like the little girls represent later. This is an honest treaty, an honest peace pipe between them. The other time we see the Calumet baking powder cans is when they're very carefully placed behind Jack Nicholson's head, when he's talking to Grady.
Now you hear him mention the Calumet baking powder. There are several cities named Calumet in the United States, and actually one in Canada as well. 3 of those cities fall on the 88th parallel. We have Calumet, Illinois, which is at the 87th parallel. We have Calumet, Wisconsin. We have Calumet, Michigan, both on the 88th parallel. And we've talked about the number 88. But here's another thing. This is a Calumet in Quebec, Canada, and it falls on the 73rd parallel, which has significance as we just pointed out. We also have a Calumet that was used in the movie Red Dawn, and we covered this movie, Red Dawn. It is on the 37th parallel. It is now a ghost town. Let's take a look at Calumet in Colorado. As you can see, it's on the 37th parallel. So all of these locations of these cities have significance to what we're looking at right now.
Here he mentions Chicago, which we know falls on the 88th meridian.
First, I grew up in Chicago, and therefore just north of the Calumet Harbor.
Here the narrator reveals the German Nazi subplot, and of course we've covered this extensively on Enter the Stars. I did not pick up on this in the movie The Shining, but here, if you listen, he reveals that.
And I began to see patterns and details that I hadn't noticed before. Special expertise is in the history of Germany, and Nazi Germany in particular. I became more and more convinced that there is, in this film, a deeply laid subtext that takes on the Holocaust. I think it probably was the typewriter, which was a German brand, which might seem arbitrary, but by that time I knew enough about Kubrick that most anything in his films can't be regarded as arbitrary, that anything, especially objects and colors and music and anything else, probably have some intentional as well as unintentional meaning to them. And so that struck me. Why a German typewriter? And in connection with that, I began to see the number 42 appear in the film. And for a German historian, if you put the number 42 and a German typewriter together, you get the Holocaust. Because it was in 1942 that the Nazis made the decision to go ahead and exterminate all the Jews they could. And they did so in a highly mechanical, industrial, and bureaucratic way. And so the juxtaposition of the number 42 and the typewriter was really where it started for me in terms of the historical content of the film. Of course, Adler in German means eagle, and eagle, of course, is a symbol of Nazi Germany. It's also a symbol of the United States, and Kubrick generally has recourse to eagles to symbolize state power. Kubrick read Raoul Hilberg's The Destruction of the European Jews. And Hilberg's major theme in there is that he focuses on the apparatus of killing and he emphasizes how bureaucratic it was and how it was a matter of lists and typewriters. Spielberg picked that up in Schindler's List, of course. I mean, the film begins with typewriters and lists, and ends with a list, of course. That German typewriter, which, by the way, changes color in the course of the film, which typewriters don't generally do, is terribly, terribly important as a referent to that particular historical event.
I worked in the film archive for a decade, kind of like fast-forwarding through World War II 10 times a day. But, you know, like, when you see things over and over and over again, their meanings change for you. Like, when you see like World War II newsreels, like, after a while you come to realize that it's all faked. Like, that you are not seeing troops storming Normandy. You're seeing troops storming a beach in Hollywood. Like, you're not seeing a plane flying to Japan. Like, you're seeing a plane flying over, New Mexico. What you're really being shown is, like, staged heroism. Like, you're seeing men moving with machines. But you're not seeing what they're talking about.
Now listen as he talks about subliminal advertising. This is not all in our heads, you guys.
He was looking for the next thing. And what he did was he began reading Subliminal Seduction and a number of other books, which were about how advertisers were injecting images, subliminal images, into advertising to sell products more.
Suggestible trance. Work the way.
You know, there'll be an ad for Gilby's Gin, and inside the ice cube will be various sex organs and things to add a subliminal appeal to the ad. Kubrick went to these advertisers and he asked them what their methods were. And then he took those methods and he applied them to The Shining. Inside The Shining are hundreds of subliminal images and shot lineups. And what these images are telling is a extremely disturbing story about sexuality. And the subtext of the story, besides the other subtexts of the story, is a story of haunted phantoms and demons who are sexually attracted to humans and are feeding off of them.
Now this is fascinating. We finally get a snapshot into how this all works, how they arrange this information into these films. Listen closely.
And then he would keep this fellow on the phone for a long time. He said we had many long conversations in which he picked my brain about everything. And at that point he said Kubrick was talking about maybe coming here to make the movie here, which I expect at that point that fellow liked the idea of, so it would make his hotel famous. And Kubrick said, I'd like to send out a research team. And so he then set out, the man said it was something like 2 or 3 people who came out here and stayed here for 2 or 3 months, taking photographs everywhere. And they spent a lot of time also down in Denver in the Colorado State Archives, finding out, as I would now expect, the full history of Colorado, which the flag of which plays a part. And the gold rush, the Colorado gold rush, was also a very big event. And there's still a lot of American Indian white people tension in Colorado with Navajos and Arapahoes just to the south. This research team found out absolutely everything about Colorado, about Estes Park, about the Stanley Hotel, about its entire history, took photographs all over the place. 3 months was the impression I have of what he said about how this research team gathered absolutely everything. Kubrick unearthed an enormous amount about the real history of Colorado where this takes place. Because what he has done is found a way to dig into all of the patterns of our civilization, our times, and our cultures, and the things that we don't want to look at. And this movie is very much also about denial of the genocides that we committed, we white folk.
And that's how they do it, you guys. That is how they arrange all these synchronicities
actually, I wasn't sure if I was blurring the line between what I wanted to see and what I was seeing. And then at about 58 minutes in the film is the famous scene where Danny's playing with his trucks and he stands up and he's wearing the Apollo 11 sweater with a rocket taking off. Then I knew I had nabbed it. And then I started watching the film with an intensity that I don't think I've ever watched a movie before. Wendy, that is just so typical of you. Don't you know I have obligations to my employers? Do you have any idea what a contract is? Do you know what an agreement is? Jack Nicholson's whole tirade against his wife, that's Stanley. That's Stanley telling his wife that after she discovered what he was doing, which was the Apollo footage. That's actually not true. If you call the Mount Hood Resort and you ask for room 217, you will find there is no such room. So that's just not true. That statement's not true. And so what Stanley was lying. It's not the reason that he changed the room number from 217 to 237. The reason that he changed it from 217 to 237 was because the room 237 in the film represents the moon landing stage where he worked. And the moon, the standard science textbooks said, and they still say, but now with lasers we've gotten a little better reading, but is that the mean distance of the moon from the Earth is exactly 237,000 miles. So he changed that so that you would understand that this was the moon room. So Danny stands up. He's got the Apollo 11 sweater on. He begins walking down the hallway. And on the key is the words room and then the word NO, which is an old acronym for number. So room number 237, except that the only capital letters on the key are ROOM and then the N from the acronym NO. And if there's only two words that you can come up with that have those letters in them, and that's moon and room. And so on the key, the tag, it says moon room. And that is the moon room. This is where everything happens. And none of it's real. And it all has to be lied about. And you can't let anyone know what's really going on in room 237.
Now I want you to listen to the next part of this film in the context of everything we've learned about the number of man, the matrix being 6, or the cube, and then also in the context of the fallen angels mixing with the seed of men, and their color being heliotrope, purple, and green. I want you to listen closely.
Design on the rug shows basically the most, in geometric form with round curves, the act of intercourse itself, one after another, after another, after another, sort of like a picture of down through the generations of what produces life. You go back out in the hallway, in the larger society, and the round curves of that very same design have become hexagons, not so nice and round. And
we are the larger society.
But down the whole corridors of history. I think.
Now I want you to listen to this next part about the number 42. The number 42 is 2 times 3 times 7. This, I believe, is God. And every time we get a negative mass scale event, oftentimes the evil ones will put it on a holy day, such as 9/11 and 1942. The entire color spectrum of the rainbow falls within 42 degrees. God provided a rainbow for Noah after the flood. Let's watch.
If you multiply the numbers 2, 3, and 7, you get 42. Now, I admit perhaps I'm grasping at straws there, but it is consistent with a pattern of reference in the film.